Please, Mr. Lion, Aslan, sir, said Diggory, may I, please will you give me some magic fruit of this country to make mother well? He had been desperately hoping the lion would say yes, and he'd been horribly afraid it might say no, but he was taken aback when it did neither. This is the boy, said Aslan, looking not at Diggory but at his counsellors. This is the boy who did it. Oh dear, thought Diggory, what have I done now? Son of Adam, said the lion, there is an evil witch abroad in my new land of Narnia. Tell these good beasts how she came here. A dozen different things that he might have said flashed through Diggory's mind, but he had the sense to say nothing except the exact truth. I bought her, Aslan, he answered in a low voice. For what purpose? I wanted to get her out of my own world and back into her own. I thought I was taking her back to her own place. How came she to be in your world, son of Adam? By magic. The lion said nothing, and Diggory knew that he'd not told enough. It was my uncle Aslan, he said. He sent us out of our own world by magic rings. At least I had to go because he sent Polly first, and then we met the witch in a place called Charn, and she just held on to us when... You met the witch, said Aslan in a low voice, which had the threat of a growl in it. She woke up, said Diggory wretchedly, and then, turning very white, I woke her, because I wanted to know what would have happened if I struck the bell. Polly didn't want to. It wasn't her fault. I fought her. I know I shouldn't have. I think I was a bit enchanted by the writing under the bell. Do you? Asked Aslan, still speaking very low and deep. No, said Diggory, I see now I wasn't. I was only pretending. There was a long pause, and Diggory was thinking all the time, I've spoiled everything. There's no chance of getting anything for mother now. When the lion spoke, it was not to Diggory. You see, friends, he said, that before this new, clean world I've given you is 7 hours old, a force of evil has already entered it, waked and brought hither by this son of Adam. The beasts, even Strawberry, all turned their eyes on Diggory till he felt that he wished the ground would swallow him up. But do not be cast down, said Aslan, still speaking to the beasts. Evil will come of that evil, but it is still a long way off, and I will see to it that the worst falls upon myself. In the meantime, let us take such order that, for many hundreds of years yet, this shall be a merry land in a merry world. And, as Adam's race has done the harm, Adam's race shall help to heal it. Draw near, you other two. The last words were spoken to Polly and the cabbie, who had now arrived. Polly, all eyes and mouth, was staring at Aslan and holding the cabbie's hand rather tightly. The cabbie gave one glance at the lion and took off his bowler hat. No one had yet seen him without it, and when it was off he looked younger and nicer, and much more like a countryman and less like a London cabman. Son, said the Aslan to Cabby, I have known you long. Do you know me? Well, no, sir, said the cabbie, leastwise not in an ordinary manner of speaking. Yet I feel somehow, if I might make so free, as how we've met before. It is well, said the lion. You know better than you think you know, and you shall live to know me better yet. How does this land please you? Oh, it's a fair treat, sir, said the cabbie. Would you like to live here always? Well, you see, sir, I'm a married man. said the cabby. If me wife was here, neither of us would ever want to go back to London, I reckon. We're both country folks, really. Aslan threw up his shaggy head, opened his mouth, and uttered a long single note, not very loud, but full of power. Polly's heart jumped in her body when she heard it. She felt sure it was a call, and anyone who heard that call would want to obey it, and what's more, would be able to obey it, however many worlds and ages lay in between. And so, though she was filled with wonder, she was not really astonished or shocked when all of a sudden a young woman with a kind, honest face stepped out of nowhere and stood beside her. Polly knew at once that it was the cabby's wife, fetched out of our world, not by any tiresome magic rings, but quickly, simply and sweetly as a bird flies to its nest. The young woman had apparently been in the middle of washing day, for she wore an apron, her sleeves were rolled up to the elbow, and there were soap suds on her hands. If she'd had time to put on her good clothes, her best hat had imitation cherries on it, she would have looked dreadful. As it was, she looked rather nice. Of course, she thought she was dreaming. That's why she didn't rush across to her husband and ask him what on earth was happening to them both. But when she looked at the lion, she didn't feel quite so sure it was a dream. Yet for some reason, she didn't appear to be very frightened. Then she dropped a little half curtsy, as some countries still know how to do in those days. After that, she went and put her hand in the cabby's and stood there looking around her a little shyly. "My children," said Aslan, fixing his eyes on both of them, "you are to be the first king and queen of Narnia." The cabby opened his mouth in astonishment, and his wife turned very red. "You shall rule and name all these creatures and do justice among them, and protect them from their enemies when enemies arise. And enemies will arise, for there is an evil witch in this world." The cabby swallowed hard 2 or 3 times and cleared his throat. "Begging your pardon, sir," he said, "and thanking you very much, I'm sure, which me missus does the same. But I ain't no sort of chap for a job like that. I never had much education, see." "Well," said Aslan, "can you use a spade and a plough and raise food out of the earth?" "Yes, sir, I could do a bit of that work, being brought up to it like." "Can you rule these creatures kindly and fairly, remembering they're not slaves and dumb beasts like the world you were born in, but talking beasts and free subjects?" "I see that, sir," replying the cabby. "I'd try to do the square thing by them all." "And would you bring up your children and grandchildren to do the same?" "Well, if it'll be up to me, I'd try, sir. I'd do my best, wouldn't we, Nelly? And you wouldn't have favourites either among your own children or among the other creatures, let any hold another under and use it hardly." "I never could abide such things, sir, and that's the truth. I'd give 'em what for if I caught 'em at it," said the cabby. And through this conversation, his voice was growing slower and richer, more like the country voice he must have had as a boy, and less like the sharp, quick voice of a cockney. "And if enemies came against the land, for enemies will arise, and there was war, would you be the first in the charge and the last in retreat?" "Well, sir," said the cabby very slowly, "chap don't exactly know till he's been tried. I dare say I might turn out to be ever such a soft un. Never did no fighting, except with me fists. I'd try, that is, I hope I'd try, to do me bit." "Then," said Aslan, "you will have done all that a king should do. Your coronation will be held presently, and you and your children and grandchildren shall be blessed, and some will be kings of Narnia, and others kings of Archenland, which lies yonder over the southern mountain. And you, little daughter," here she turned to Polly, "you're welcome. Have you forgiven the boy for the violence he did you in the Hall of Images, in the desolate palace of accursed charm?" "Yes, Aslan, we've made it up," said Polly. "That is well," said Aslan. "And now for the boy himself."